Dr. Brian Scott with you again. Here we are starting a new week in the month of August 2023, and we have been looking over the last couple of weeks at the rapture, the pre-tribulation rapture of the church. And as we closed up last week, we were looking at perilous times in our life, perilous times in our society, and so on. And I had shared several verses with you. Just to reiterate those verses, in 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1, it says, "Know this, in the last days, the very last days, perilous times are going to come," referring to exceedingly dangerous times are going to come. And then it goes on to list a lot of examples of that. And it concludes a portion of those examples in verse 5 saying, these people will have a form of godliness, but they will deny the power, and we should turn away from such people. Then verse 11 in that chapter says, evil men and impostors will grow worse and worse. They will deceive and be deceived. In 1 Timothy chapter 4, Paul wrote and said, in latter times, some believers are going to depart from the faith. They will give heed to or pay attention to deceiving spirits and doctrines of demons. King James says, seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. And then over in Isaiah chapter 60, it says, we are going to have a time where gross darkness will cover the earth and gross darkness will cover the people. Well, these are perilous times we're living in. And I want to look at some examples of the peril that's occurring in our society today, because we are shifting. My gracious, we're shifting. We're shifting away from things that we've always known to be true and to be accurate, and they're now being thrown up in the air as if, no, they're not. And I've never seen such a transition occur, so drastic or drastically as a transition where I said it, therefore it's truth, and you have to believe it. And you don't get the right to have your own opinion because what I said is true. And that's going on everywhere. There's new hate legislation that's being passed in a lot of jurisdictions, and they don't define what hate is. They just said if you say something that causes another person to sense hatred, that's a violation. That's an indictment. That's going to end up with you being charged, and you're going to either spend some time behind the bars, be in jail, or you're going to pay a hefty fine. But when you look at the legislation, it's all subjective. There's no definition of what hate is. So here's the answer. Hate is what I say it is. And because I said it's hate, and that's it, nothing more. Not a friend necessarily, although we are friendly, but an acquaintance, an individual that I met a couple of years ago who has a very storied and very respectable past and has quite a status and standing in the United States, was speaking to a college campus group of people, young people, college-age students, in one of the Ivy League schools on the East Coast. So I'm talking pretty high level, both status-wise, being able to get in, and so on and so forth. And he asked the question, he was speaking on constitutional issues. He asked the question, could you please define free speech for me? Because it's protected under the Constitution in the United States. And their definition was this: free speech is, you have the right to say anything that I agree with. You have the right to say anything I agree with. Folks, we're living in perilous times. And that peril, that exceeding danger that we're talking about, is because of the way things have shifted and changed. We referenced the other day things like gender identification, cultural changes, societal changes, the woke movement, the diversity, inclusivity, equality movement, and on it goes. What about all the sexual things that are occurring, the transgender? All these issues are causing a major shift in the way things are considered and thought of. So I wanted to give you some illustrations, some examples of things I've come across in research and reading. And what I'm sharing them for is primarily to show you that we're in perilous times. And so please focus on that aspect. We're in perilous times. these illustrations will just show you how much peril there is. Here's an example. A large American church, which is known as a Bible-believing, Christ-centered church, decided to create a new biblical statement of beliefs on sexuality, which would be in line with Bible standards. And they presented this to their church membership, which I presume by the sound of it is a significant number of people. And the church members unanimously approved this new statement of sexual status, dealing with things like two genders, man and women, male and female, dealing with marriage according to the Bible, raising children according to the Bible, and so on and so on. It had to deal with family values, sexual matters, marriage values, and so on and so forth, all of which are in accordance with the scriptures. And once it was put together, they presented it to their massive membership, and they asked them to affirm it, and asked them to not only affirm it, but to sign a statement of affirmation and agreement, and they had unanimous support. So it was approved. About 3 months later, someone leaked the existence of this to the local media and the press, and the expression, and pardon the expression, but all hell broke loose. And the press and the media got a hold of this, and all kinds of havoc and controversy and hateful rhetoric followed, to the extent that the church had to have an open forum to explain their position and try to explain to the general public who attended why they adopted such a statement and why the membership agreed with it. Now, here's what concerns me. Why would a church have to open up their decision-making criteria to the general public who are not members, who don't attend, who have no interest in the church, other than to harass them, create havoc, and spread hateful rhetoric? These are unusual days, perilous times. This is a very, very unusual step that had to be taken. And they, wow. Imagine that you could make a decision in the church you attend that would come under the general population. The general populace would decide whether or not you have the right to do it. You can't cross the line anymore as it pertains to the cultural shifts and changes that have occurred. Here's another illustration. I won't name the organization, but this is a sport organization in the United States. It's well respected, well known, and this particular organization is primarily women participating. And one of their leading athletes has stepped down and withdrawn her involvement because this organization decided to include biological males who self-identify as a female. And in this sport, the fact that they are a biological male gives them an absolutely overwhelming advantage over the female individual. And this leading athlete said, "This is not right. This is wrong. Why would our organization even do this?" Why? Because of the pressure they're getting from the woke movement, from the diversity, inclusivity, equality movement. And so instead of standing up for what they know is right and they know is absolutely necessary to allow for fairness amongst their athletes, they've included the transgendered male who wants to be a female. When are we going to stand up and say that's not the way it should be? These are perilous times. That's what I'm getting at. These are perilous times. You just don't even know when your apple cart is going to be upset from someone who says you have the right to say anything I agree with. Oh my goodness. I'll see you tomorrow. We got some more for you. Are you blessed? Amen.